If you're just using Microsoft Teams for meetings, oh man, Microsoft Teams can do so much more. Today I'm going to talk specifically about how to set up Microsoft Teams to help you manage projects. Hey, I'm Emma. I'm a project manager here at Ball Digital. And whether you're just starting out with Teams or you've been using Teams for a while and you know you need a refresh, that's what I'm going to dive into today. I have been there before, where you're not really sure how these tools work together. You've got Planner, you've got Microsoft Teams, you've got files saved somewhere. What I want to talk through today is how to manage a project using Microsoft Teams as your hub and creating a space where you can manage files, have meetings, have all of your project conversation, and track tasks. Just easy, seamlessly, all in one place. One thing I want to get out of the way at the very beginning of this video is when we talk about managing work with Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Teams specifically, a lot of people have different definitions about that work that's being done. We like to put these into two different buckets. So we have projects and processes. So if you have a process that you're trying to track, that's something that happens maybe weekly, monthly, annually. It's sort of cyclical or iterative. It's repeatable. That's a process. What I'm going to focus on today is a project, and I define that as something that has a start date and an end date and is likely a one-time initiative. Maybe you do similar projects, but each project is unique in its own sense. And then within projects and processes, you have tasks. So on the process side, maybe that looks like every month you're going through accounting month-end close. So you might have a task like an accounting analyst pulls cost variances and sends a report to a manager to review. That's a task that might happen once a month. On a project, you will have tasks that happen just within the scope of that project. The way we treat these tasks might look a little different in these tools. So again, today I'm going to focus on the project side of things. If you are interested in the process side of things, definitely leave a comment and we can look at creating a video on that. All right, so now that we're clear that we're talking about projects, let's get into our first step, which is all about creating a Microsoft team and the first channel. So here I am in the Teams app, and I'm going to create a Microsoft team to support this project. So I hit the plus button, I hit create team, and I'm going to give my team a name. I like to call it the actual project name. So let's give this a real example. Let's say I work at an organization, I'm the project manager on an HR system migration. So maybe we're moving from one system to another, and I'm going to keep the team type private, and I'm going to name my first channel. Now this is a little caveat. Microsoft used to always name the first channel the same thing. It was always called General. No longer can you do that. So I use the word all, and I like this word for a few reasons. One, it kind of hints at it being where everyone's together, all the information can be found. And also it starts with the letter A, which means in the channel list, it will stay at the top because the channel list is alphabetized. I can also add a description. So this is the project team and project hub for the HR system migration. That will let everyone know what this team is for. So I'm going to hit create, and it will create my team for me. So now I can go in and add members to the HR team. So I'm going to add Miriam and maybe Megan and Lydia. So I'm going to click add, and all of those members will be added to the overarching Microsoft team, and any channels that I create within this team will have all those team members added. Okay, so now we're in the team, and you can see that that first channel was already created for me here. I would recommend, if you're just starting out on your journey with Microsoft Teams, to just keep it simple and just use one channel. So one channel for that project, especially if it is a more simple project. When you get a little bit more complicated with a lot more team members, it does make sense to break out by topics and different channels. But for this example, and again, just for simplicity, I'm going to show you how to set up this first channel as really being the hub for the project. So this is where we're going to create all of our tabs and direct the project team to have all of our communication and information living here. Okay, so now the fun part. This is where we get to organize all of our tabs at the top of our channel, which will really create one of the main benefits of managing projects out of Microsoft Teams. It creates this centralized hub or this single source of truth where team members are able to go to one place for all of the different project information that they need. So I'm going to walk through each tab one at a time and show you how I build out projects. So here at Bulb Digital, we have been curating and crafting this framework for a number of years on a lot of different projects. And this is what we've found has worked best for us. And I'd recommend you start this way, but you can always adapt it to what works for your team. We all know that communication is super key to project success, but what I found is keeping that communication in one centralized location is really the key to making sure that your team is completely on the same page. So Teams sets this up for you. This is the Posts tab, and this should serve as your channel chat. I use the word chat loosely because I know you can chat in other areas of Microsoft Teams, and that's not what this is. This is actually so much better because you're creating a stream of conversation happening within a channel, again, within this all channel, but think of it like a group chat with all of the project team members all in the same place. Couple pro tips here. When you start a post, always make sure that you're tagging the entire channel. So if you do @channel or @all, it'll give you that option, and that will notify all of your different project team members who are in that team that you've posted. So that's definitely a pro tip. Or if you want someone specific to do something, like if I want Lydia to create the agenda for our next meeting, I'll make sure that I @Lydia, and then again, that really tags her. It's kind of like when you're emailing, you're making sure the person that really needs to read the email is in the to line, and then you're CCing all the other important people by keeping that all tag in there. So a couple different pro tips to make sure people are seeing your information and your posts. If you want to make an announcement, you can come in and choose the announcement option, post or announcement. Announcements are obviously just reserved for the bigger announcements where you would actually want to have like a headline and put some more information in. I look at this a little bit like on emails where people mark emails as critically important or urgent. Use these sparingly. If you're using these for every single one of your posts, you're not doing it right. The last thing I'll say about using Microsoft Teams and communicating in this way is resist the urge to have sideline chats with different people about this project. All of your conversation pertaining to this project should be happening in this Posts tab. You shouldn't have any direct messages unless you have a super good reason as to why it needs to be confidential. But most, and I mean like 99% of the conversation about this project should happen here in this post. We are really big believers in open, transparent communication, and that's one of the keys to project success here in Microsoft Teams. If you're interested in this topic more, we actually have a whole blog about what we call topic-based communication, and like I said, we're really passionate about it, so we explain it and outline kind of how to get that started at your organization, as well as an online course that you can take called the Total Communication Reset, the TCR, and it's really helpful. My coworker Mitch breaks down why topic-based communication is so beneficial and, again, how to get it set up at your organization. All right, so moving right along to our next default tab. So these are the tabs that were just given to us when we set up this team within Teams. So we've got Files. Same goes for files that went for posts, as far as all of the project files that are pertinent to this project, documents, meeting recordings, just honestly any type of resource that you want to have stored in a folder, they should live here in these files. The other thing to note is that anything that gets put into that post conversation, anything that gets put into a post or an announcement in that channel chat will also automatically get put here in the files. And so that makes it really easy to collaborate and know what document everyone's talking about. One pro tip that I do here is I actually usually create some structure of folders before I get started with my team. So I usually create an admin folder, and then I create a meeting recordings folder, and you'll see that I name all of my folders with like 01, 02, so that I keep things in the same order. And then if you're working on multiple projects with me, you'll start to notice that all of my projects are sort of set up the same way, and there's this consistent structure where people know where to go for certain information. Again, this is just how I do it. I'm not sure how it'll work on your team, but I found this to be really useful. Next tab is called Notes. This is where this video might get a little controversial because I'm going to have you do something that might feel a little uncomfortable. I'm going to have you actually remove this tab completely. I use the app Loop for all my note-taking needs, and I find having a tab called Notes hanging around with a OneNote ready to go is just confusing for my project teams. So I just go ahead and remove this OneNote and remove the notes and replace it with a tab for Loop. So today, I'm going to just click the little caret and hit remove and go ahead and permanently remove this OneNote. So now I'm back. I've got my posts for all of my team conversation, got my files, a little bit of a structure already loosely set up there. Now I'm going to add in Loop. So I click the plus tab. Loop right now is not built into Microsoft Teams, so I will just add Loop as a website. I'm going to call this tab Loop. Now there are a couple of steps you have to do to get a Loop workspace set up in order to loosely connect it to your Microsoft Teams. So bear with me as we set that up. We do know that this connection between Loop and Microsoft Teams is coming, but for now, this is kind of how I connect the two. So if you're new to Loop, this is what it looks like. You've got all your workspaces set up below. I'm gonna hit this plus button on the side and create a new workspace. And I'm going to mirror everything that I just did to create a Microsoft team on the team side here in the workspace. So I'm gonna call it the exact same thing, HR System Migration. And I'm going to invite the exact same people. So I've added Lydia, Megan, and Miriam, and this is really key, so I'm gonna pause here. The creation of a Loop workspace does not automatically add in your Microsoft team. So you do have to remember who did you add to your Microsoft team, project team, and then copy and paste and make sure all of those same people are added to the workspace. That way the permissions and the access will be mirrored between the two. And so there is this kind of additional extra manual step, but once you've got it set up and everyone has access to both the Microsoft team and the Loop workspace, you're golden. And once Microsoft rolls out a connection between the two, you hopefully won't have to do that anymore. And now I'm in Loop. Here's my Loop workspace. I do usually add a couple of different pages just as standard. Again, loosely structure. I think that sometimes kind of helps. I always call one page just the meetings page, and then nested below that, I will have the different meetings. Kind of a pro tip here, I always, because Loop doesn't have dates built into it of this was last edited on XYZ date, when I have meetings, I will put the actual date of the meeting into the title, and then that's kind of how I organize all of the different meetings on different days. So I'll show you kind of an example there. Let's say I have this meeting standard every 15th of the month. Okay, and I might, I'll have these oldest at the bottom and then the newer meetings towards the top. So again, just an example of kind of adding some structure to what can feel like a lot of white space. That's super important when you're trying to get team members to adopt Loop, is sort of guiding them into it and having some structure already set up. Another page that I always create with projects, I love their project planning template. You can go ahead and just choose the template from the template library. They show you a bunch of template gallery, or a bunch of templates in their template gallery. Project planning, it just thinks of everything for you, which I love. the roles on the project, the background context, and then you can add in all your details. One thing you might notice in Loop that I do want to comment on is that you can upload a file. I don't recommend using this feature. I actually recommend uploading the file into the project team under that Files tab that I just showed, and then linking that file from that project team into your Loop, and you can do so through the link option here. The reasons for that are too long to get into right now, but they're very valid. So I'm just going to grab the URL from this Loop workspace, Control copy. I'm going to go back into my adding a tab, call this Loop, and paste that URL right here. And I'm going to post to the channel about this new tab. So now when I click this Loop tab, instead of having an experience right here in Microsoft Teams, it's just going to open up in the browser, and away we go. So in theory, let's say you've got a meeting coming up that you need to create an agenda for, and you want to capture that in your Loop workspace. You could come to your Project Hub here in Microsoft Teams, click the Loop tab, and here you are on Meetings. I'm going to click right into my meeting, and I'm going to start creating my agenda and adding all of my bullet points, decide on date. And what I love about Loop is it just creates a really clean, formatting's taken care of list, and you can write everything in there, everyone will see it, and then you can go ahead and screen share that on your next meeting. Of course, we can't talk about project management with Microsoft Tools without mentioning Planner. So that's the next tab we're going to add here. So I'm going to choose a new tab. I'm going to choose Planner. So you always get two options. You can create a new plan or use an existing plan from this team. I'm going to just create a new plan, and you can name your tab. I'm going to actually name it Planner. Some people like to name it Tasks. And now I've got a new planner board set up with the permissions and access that includes everyone that's within this Microsoft team. So my whole project team's got access to this planner board. I want to give a small caveat that I think Planner works best for simple project management. I usually create pretty simple Kanban boards, so having a column for to do, in progress, and maybe a done column, or you can have a lot of different stages for tasks within that. This is really where Planner shines. And I'll show you adding a task, like let's say create agenda. Let's assign that to Lydia. Set a due date. And then Lydia can actually come in. She has access to this planner board. When she's starting on that task, she can move it herself into the in progress. And this really allows us to track status visually to see how many tasks do we still have to do, haven't started yet, what is in progress, and what is done. Again, this is Planner. It's great for basic project management. Think simple, not a ton of layers or complication to your project management. If you do have a more complicated project, you might want to consider upgrading to Planner Premium or Project. Okay, so I'm going to assign myself a task to demonstrate how tasks and Planner all work together. So let's say I need to schedule a meeting before the company town hall. I'm going to assign this to myself. I am Adele Vance in this test environment. Add the task. Actually set a due date as well. Let's say it's due next Thursday. And now if you look at the Planner tab here in Teams, you'll see that as I get assigned tasks, in that planner, they will show up in my tasks. So I'll be able to see all the different things that I still need to do, what the priority is, what the due date is, and organize all of these different items. And your project team will also see all the different tasks that get assigned to them in the planner. So these two tools work really well together. Okay, so continuing on with our tabs, the last one that I add relatively often because I still find use for it is the whiteboard tab. So you can add a whiteboard for your team to use for brainstorming or for process mapping. I'm going to just call it whiteboard. Go ahead and save it. I have found that most of the brainstorming that my team does on projects can happen in Loop, but Whiteboard is still great once in a while if you need to do a sticky note session, or we used to always do retros in Whiteboards, but I actually do those in Loop now as well. But either way, you can add Whiteboard as a tab if you find it useful. Now, we all know one of the biggest challenges with project management is getting consensus and actually getting the entire team on the same page around what you're working on or what decisions need to be made. So a couple different features that Microsoft Teams already has built in that you can use. I use the polls feature. So I'm here in my post communication thread where all of our communication about our project is going on. You just add that little plus button at the bottom, type in polls, and add this. So let's do an example here. Let's say we're trying to decide as a team what division we're going to roll the HR system migration out to first. So what division should we roll out to first? Can throw some options in there: IT, marketing, executive, team, accounting.
Yes.
And I'm going to let people vote for multiple and just see what comes to the top. So I can preview that, and then I'm going to send that out to the team. And this will allow all of the team members, again, within that project team, to vote on what they think. And I'm able to see live responses. I can vote as well. Let's say I think these two teams should win. Awesome. And you'll see that my response comes through. So just super useful in trying to gain consensus and keep all of that conversation all within that project team out in the open. Other people can see what is winning and what decision should be made. The other really important side of getting a team aligned and getting everyone on the same page is having regular stand-up meetings. This kind of comes from the Scrum or Agile world. Stand-ups are regular daily meetings some of the time, usually weekly within our organization. So to set those up, I always go to the top here and hit schedule a meeting and create these as channel meetings. So that means that everyone within this channel is added to the meeting, and maybe I have these on a regular occurrence, like I said, most likely weekly. So with that, I've now gone through and created my team. My next step, of course, would be to schedule a kickoff meeting with the project team, walk them through how to access everything, what the expectations are for communication, where to post, how to post, where the files are, how to use Loop, where the tasks are stored. All of this information can be found in this project hub, and I'd want to get my team on board and ready to use this system. So I hope this was helpful in kind of breaking down how all of these tools can work together. I know it can be very confusing how you can get Planner to talk to Microsoft Teams, to talk to something like Loop, and how you arrange all of those different tools to be accessible in one hub. This is the framework that we have found most useful, and this is what I use to run all of our projects. And I hope it can be a helpful starting point, and then you can build on that, what works for you and your team. Drop us a comment below if you have any questions, or leave me your tips that you've learned along the way on setting up this project hub in Microsoft Teams. So what we're talking about is work management, right? So it's just getting work done within Microsoft 365 tools, within Microsoft Teams. Whether you're an official project manager and that is your day-to-day job, or you're just trying to use these tools to get your work done, we think about this as kind of the everyday workflow. So if you're curious about this, we have lots of different resources and a few events coming up. Definitely check those out on bulb.digital/PM. And we'll post about different events that we're doing to share resources on these everyday workflow items and how to use Microsoft tools to get work done. So that's more on the individual side. But if you're looking to have your entire organization go through kind of a reset on how to use Microsoft tools, we have something called our Microsoft 365 Everyday Essentials Bootcamp that brings your whole organization on a journey of a sort of reset on how to use Microsoft in their day-to-day to just get work done. If you're interested in that, we'll leave a link down below, and you can schedule a call and chat with us about what that would look like. That's it for me today. Thanks so much for joining, and happy project managing.